I think with us, it's more about category by category, brand by brand.
Right.
Because if the collective starts to do well, then you'll start to find that as a company, we're starting to take share, and share is always the most important thing.
Yeah.
As long as you're growing faster than your competitors, then you're winning.
Yeah.
And then from there, then how do we take our brands from being, from a trial and awareness to usage, to regular usage, to the point that this brand is Thabo's favorite brand. It doesn't matter where he is, that's the brand that he wants.
Yeah. Hey, what's up everybody? Sanibonani Dumelang. Welcome to the Ebozi Show. You know what it is. My name is Thabo Moloi, and this is the show where we sit down with real industry trailblazers to give you the insights, wisdom, and knowledge to help take your career and your business to the next level. I am so excited for this show. Been looking forward to this for the longest time. So we're blessed to have royalty. Marketing and sales royalty. So best make sure you get a notebook and pen because you want to get as much out of this as possible. Got a guy here from Lesotho, Maseru, who did his degree in the University of Free State, where he completed a BCom in marketing. His sales and marketing career took off at SABmiller. He was the sales manager there, became the marketing execution manager, and became the customer marketing manager. A lot of pedigree that he spent there, a lot of wisdom that he acquired, but then he moved over to the big blue U, where he was the national account manager at Unilever. And today, ladies and gentlemen, he is the inland general manager for Pernod Ricard. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Michael Lebona. Welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you very much, Thabo.
An incredible honor. So excited. Been looking up to you for the longest time. It's great to have you on the show.
It's only a pleasure. Thank you, my brother.
I'm curious though, because your career is one that is intertwined with sales and marketing. I mean, you did a BCom Marketing at the university. At SAB, you were in sales, and then you're marketing execution manager, then you're customer marketing manager. Where does Michael because people are either or a lot of the time.
Right.
Do you see yourself as a combination of a sales and marketer guy? Or did you see yourself just assuming different roles at different times?
So I think I started off my career wanting to become a brand manager.
Okay.
And end up as a marketing director.
Okay.
And that's the path that I took, hence why I started at BCom Marketing.
Okay.
But I think my passion was more about creating ads.
Yeah.
Great, relevant, advertising for companies.
Okay.
And South Africa is one of those companies where you can actually create great content. You look at Nando's, for example, and that was kind of the reason why I set aside in that career path. Unfortunately, or should I say fortunately, I had to, in order to understand, the marketing space and brands and consumer interaction, I started as a sales rep trainee.
Okay.
In a small town called Velkom.
Okay.
So people often say, what good comes out of Velkom? A lot of good comes out of that place. That's where the hub of the Free State, or especially goldfields.
Yeah.
In terms of the mining industry. In terms of Anglo Gold, Harmony, etc. That's where it all started. So that is where I started my career. And starting as a sales rep, you are on the ground, you are in the know, you know exactly what's happening, where it's happening. You pick up on the trends, consumer insights, customer insights, and as a result, that's where you actually build brands.
Yeah.
So I was, as much as that was my aspiration was still to become a marketing director, but I think my career kind of took a turn.
Yeah.
A good turn for that matter. And also I think, you're not in the office. As much as marketing requires a lot of creativity, you're sitting with agencies. However, this, you are learning firsthand on the ground.
Yeah.
Your customers, your consumers, your competitors. So it created a different angle for me.
Yeah.
And that's kind of, that's what set my passion for sales and customer alight.
That's awesome. And what I've noticed is that great salespeople do have an appreciation for marketing, an appreciation for brands, but more importantly, an appreciation for the consumer that actually buys the product.
Absolutely.
And at the same time, great marketers have an appreciation for sales.
Correct.
So the two kind of
they're intertwined.
Go together quite nicely.
Absolutely.
So can you imagine you having an appreciation for both worlds sort of helps you, grow and elevate and think in a way that can combine, both worlds, because people are quite binary in their thinking.
Very.
I'm either a salesperson
you're right,
or I'm a marketer.
Yeah.
But actually, you're both.
Correct.
You know, you one way or the other you are marketing, one way or the other you are selling. But now Pernod Ricard.
Yes.
This is where we are. I believe it's a French company.
It is.
But
Yeah.
it operates here in South Africa. And when I was researching the organization, you know, there's a few things that stood out for me. One is like the value and culture of the company.
Right.
You know, this celebrating friendship and getting together, and this in South Africa we call it Ubuntu.
Yes.
But I think they call it conviviality.
Conviviality. Yes.
All right.
That's right.
So this conviviality concept, maybe can you talk to us in terms of, you know, what it means for the organization and how do you bring it alive to your consumers and customers?
Okay, that's a great question, and you know, that is the principle of how this company was actually birthed. So one of the founding members, Paul Ricard, who's late, his philosophy and his belief was making a new friend every single day.
Okay.
And for him, it was more about, you know, how do we engage with people? How do we learn from different cultures, people from different backgrounds, and by doing it in a convivial way, over a drink, where you're sharing, you're listening, you're understanding, in order to not just better yourself, but better the environment, your economy, and your surroundings. And that's what this company is based on. So I mean, you know, this is the number 2 biggest spirits and champagne company in the world.
Okay.
And I don't know if you saw.
Yes,
know,
I saw the selection.
If you
of
saw
bottles.
the selection of bottles,
Yeah.
you know, so we're whiskey, champagne, cognac, tequila, vodka, rum company. We just don't do brandy.
Okay.
To answer your question, I think what was your question again?
So I asked about conviviality,
Yes.
like great value, great ethos. I know in South Africa we've got this Ubuntu thing about
Right.
togetherness and people, but it's something important. But I was wondering how you bring it alive to your customers and to your consumers.
So conviviality it's an authentic way of saying, how do we show up?
Okay.
How do we enjoy our brands? How do we communicate? How do we engage? How are we authentic?
Okay.
How do you stay Thabo,
Yeah.
irrespective of where you are, where you come from, what your conditions are, or where you're trying to get to. So conviviality for us, or for me specifically, is how do I share the brands that I love with the people that I care about? How do I engage with people in a very, as I said, authentic,
Yeah.
true manner, that I'm not being somebody who I'm not, but I'm being honest, I'm being transparent, and having fun.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
You know, our philosophy is not work hard, play hard. Our philosophy is live in a convivial manner.
Sure.
You know,
That's profound.
and it's all about authentic brands, authentic people. Yeah.
I like that so much, and there's so many lessons like different entrepreneurs can draw from that. So a lot of the work we do is with small businesses
Right.
in the township, and we try and gather as much insights for them to help them grow, help them understand what branding is, and help them understand how to build a sales strategy. And what we've noticed in organizations that are successful, much like this organization, is what you're saying is 100% true in terms of that authenticity and holding on to that. I mean, you got some whiskeys that are like from the 1800s, you know, but they're still around
Yeah.
today.
Strong heritage.
Yes,
Yeah.
and to build brands like that, I can imagine there's a lot of resistance you will face, but you need to sort of persevere.
Right.
You know, so I want to find out from you, in all these market dynamics that have shifted and changed and people have come and gone, what are some of the things that, you know, keep these brands iconic and relevant? You know, that people, you know, hundreds of years later still want to consume a Valentine's or a Chivas Regal, or, you know, how do you keep a brand, you know, consistently relevant throughout changing market conditions?
So it's all about staying true to the DNA of that brand.
Okay.
Because with any brand, you'll find that many brand managers work on a brand,
Yeah.
and they'll move on to another brand.
Yeah.
And it's always remembering what the brand stands for. Most importantly, the intrinsics of the brand.
Yeah.
So where does it come from? What is its heritage? What are those key characteristics about that brand? And yes, even though time, you know, campaigns will change.
Yeah.
But I mean, if I use a brand like Jameson,
Okay.
you know, Jameson is a brand that I started consuming when I was at university.
Yeah.
You know, why? And people ask me why, and I said because of the taste.
Yeah.
You know, it's all about triple
Yeah.
distilled, twice as smooth. It was just a smooth whiskey for me. And over the years, we've never ever, lost that in terms of our way to market, in terms of how we show up in the trade, in terms of ensuring that our brand, our consumers and our customers enjoy the brand and we sell this brand. I mean, in South Africa, Jameson is the second biggest brand globally.
Sure.
So it just shows you how we've managed to build on that, intrinsic value and expanded on it and made it come alive. So with every single brand has its own identity and its own cues, and it's always remembering what that is and what that stands for, but also doing it in a very authentic way, but also in a way that people can resonate and understand. So it's how do we take an Irish brand and make it South African? We're not going to bring Irish people here and and try and position it in such a way that we kind of force it down your throat. It's about how do we use South Africans and use their background, their thinking, their ideology, and bring this brand to life in the South African way, in an authentic way.
Sure. That's a refreshing approach, because you'd expect people just to come and implement what's worked abroad in a different market,
right?
But to understand that the dynamics and the nuances aren't the same.
They're not.
And you need to speak to those.
Absolutely, and that's why we're a very decentralized business. And one of the other things that is really important to us is entrepreneurship.
Okay.
So, I'm not going to force, for example, my team, I don't tell my team how to do what they need to do.
Okay.
They'll pitch up and they'll do it however, they feel is the best way. Because unfortunately one size doesn't fit all.
Sure.
And it's important that we have people with different personalities, different things that they bring to the table. And as I said, they always remain true to who they are. Otherwise, then you're going to have 1,000 Michael Lebonas that are running around, and that's not what you want either. You want people to think, in their own way, ideate, and ensure that when they're executing, that it still remains true to what it is that, from a principal perspective, what my expectations are.
That's powerful. But it's so hard. Like, I can think in my own experience of late is, as an entrepreneur, you just want things to be done, especially in early stages, because you're so invested yourself personally in the business.
Right.
You know what's at stake.
100%.
And I know a lot of entrepreneurs are like this. They're so invested. They understand what's at stake. They're willing to work late. They're willing to go the extra mile. But that doesn't necessarily mean that's the right way of doing things.
Right.
And you'll find that in a leadership perspective where you need to rely on other people, it's very difficult to give them that space to fail.
Right.
Because I can imagine in your team, they do things their own way, but sometimes their way is not necessarily the right way.
And they'll learn. And that's the thing, otherwise, that's why it's so important that you give people freedom. And as an entrepreneur, as a leader, the most important thing for you is to provide that strategy. It's to say, so where are we trying to get to? What is the vision of your company? What is the vision of your team? Where do you see, what are your goals, and how do you see yourselves getting there? And that's the detail in terms of unpacking that. The team will come up with that, as long as the most important thing is that you're achieving your ideals and your goals. Because at the end of the day, you're working through people. Because unfortunately or fortunately, when you're sleeping, it's important that your team gets what the ethos of what it is that you're trying to do or trying to bring across. That is the most important thing, because if they don't buy into it, then unfortunately, you're not going to have a successful company or a successful business. It's important that they understand exactly what is expected of them, but they do it in their own free way, because that's what brings in creativity, authenticity, and it brings a great mix of different minds. And what all that does, it creates a great recipe for success.
It does, 100%. I mean, what you're saying is so powerful. And I like the points that you were speaking about earlier with Jameson and the creation of value, and the value creation being sort of the brand anchor. You speak about that triple distill, that smoothness of the whiskey. And that's something that has become then the brand identity.
Absolutely.
And it's something that I can imagine didn't happen overnight.
Right.
We got this thing, especially as younger entrepreneurs, jeepers, we're so impatient. I need my brand to be out there. I need to be viral. I need to get these followers. And we don't understand just the perspective that we need to have around the time it takes to build iconic brands.
And I mean, let's move away from brands which are tangible. Let's look at you as a person. You're a brand.
Okay.
And that takes, you didn't just arrive.
No.
There was a lot of things that, you've worked at, you've perfected, you've tweaked, and you've had to perfect in order to become the brand that you are right now.
Sure.
And all those things you've done in a particular way because you wanted particular results. So if I ask, what do you stand for? There'll be certain key points that no matter what, if you ask 10 people about Thabo, these are things that they'll say about it. Full of energy, he's focused, he knows where he's going, he's driven, and I'd like to believe that if I ask another 9 people, those are some of the key points that they'll probably bring.
Sure.
So these are things that you're doing subconsciously or consciously, but that's the impression, or that's the footprint that you're leaving with other people. It's the same with brands as well. We come up with DNAs, we come up with strategies for these brands, but at the end of the day, when you walk away, people must be able to resonate and say, this is what this brand is.
Sure.
It's quality, it is great taste, it is true to itself, it is fun, it is wind up, whatever it is, it helps me relax. And these are the cues that you want people to, when they talk about your brand, to almost nail every single time.
Sure. I love that perspective so much, because then when you're true to yourself and you are yourself all the time, that's the kind of brand on a tangible level you'd want to create, because there's often this temptation to try and jippo things so that they fit in consumers, so that I can get the sale.
Absolutely.
Right. So I change the messaging because I feel like I can get more sales here. And what you're saying is powerful, because the sales almost is driven by the strength of the brand. So if we invest up front in getting the brand out there and making sure that consumers can resonate, that's what we should sell, as opposed to trying to say, okay, let's cheapen Jameson because this market doesn't have that much income, or let's try and... So it's important, what you're saying is look to yourself and how you're true to yourself, and that naturally should then enable you to start building brands in a way.
It's all about demand creation.
Yeah.
So if you're not creating demand for a brand, then unfortunately that's where the buck is gonna, everything's gonna end.
Yeah.
And you got to create aspiration.
Yeah.
So as a brand that you are, it's important that people say, I want to get onto the show, I want to get onto this platform.
Yeah.
I'd like to interview Vital because I know, firstly, the reach, I know what he stands for, I know the quality, and all the things that make up, the show.
Yeah.
I know that, there's something that I can put my footprint on and help it, expand it. But at the same time, it's also about knowing who you are as a person and how that's going to help other people as well.
Yeah.
Because we can all learn from every single person.
Yeah, 100%.
And it's important that you open up your network.
Yeah.
Your network is your net worth. That's what it is at the end of the day.
True.
So your bigger your network, the more powerful your opportunities will come your way as well. Absolutely.
No, the learning philosophy is so key. I mean, it's a value I try and instill in my life and in my team, to always be learning.
Yeah.
To always be open to learning.
Yeah.
Because the minute you think hey, that's the turning downwards, like
Absolutely.
It's a downward spiral. But as long as you're always willing to learn, then you can reach all kinds of great heights.
Absolutely.
What I love, when I look at companies like Pernod Ricard, is the brands themselves, how they've brought this conviviality alive is so unique. Because naturally, when I thought about how I would sell a whiskey, I thought about, the texture, the smoothness, whatever. I thought about the product. Like, I was so fixated on the product.
Yeah.
But when I did research and I looked at some of the campaigns that were done around the experiences and where and how they consumed, instead of what is consumed.
Absolutely.
I felt like, sheepers, that's such a revolutionary thing. And I started looking at, because when you look at Valentine's, for example, because I'm a music fan.
Yes.
So when I look at this true music concept, it speaks to me.
It resonates.
It resonates,
Yeah.
And I was thinking, if you'd taken that out of the picture and just spoken to me about the taste of Valentine's, I wouldn't have drank Valentine's.
For sure.
But that's so powerful, how the experience itself around music is what draws me to the brand, and then I consume the product. So that strategy, I feel like, is something that is almost unique, because it's something that other people do, but they don't do it to the scale that you guys do it.
Right.
So I wanted to find out if brands wanted to get there, if we wanted to create a one source like Absolute, or all these great sort of experiential properties. Yeah. What kind of advice and strategies and tactics would you advise a small player to start thinking about to try and get there?
In terms of them as a brand, or in terms of brands that they trying to represent or grow?
Yeah, brands that they're trying to grow.
Okay.
And their portfolio in their business.
So you got to find what does that brand stand for,
Okay.
and where do you want to position it. So, for example, I look at a brand like GH Mom, champagne. It's all about celebrating.
Yeah.
So it's all about dare, win, and celebrate.
Okay.
So anytime anyone has any kind of celebration, we'd like our brand to be the brand that is top of mind, that they consume, and that they celebrate with.
Sure.
Anytime somebody has, for example, a milestone, whether it's business related, entrepreneurial, we want Shivers to be that brand, because Shivers stands for success is a blend.
Sure.
Because you understand that you weren't successful in your own right. It took other people, it took a nation, it took people, it took your staff, it took your consumers, it took your customers to help your brand reach the status that it had. So it's about Shivers, success is a blend.
Yeah.
And it speaks to the intrinsics of the brand as well, because it's a blend.
Yeah.
It's blended whiskey. You look at a brand, for example, let's look at Omega Tequila.
Okay.
It's all about bringing on the night.
Yeah.
So tequila, think about when you have tequila, when you want to kind of hasten and speed up that night. You want to get that party started, kind of elevate it, take it to another level. And that's what tequila is there for.
Yeah.
So we've understood what the different brand cues are, but most importantly also the categories that they play.
Yeah.
So for example, there's some categories like gin, which is more wind down. It's very relaxed atmosphere. It's all about how do you create a different experience every single time you have gin, which is why some people consume it with cucumber, others consume it with grapefruit, orange, lemon. It's become a fruit salad, and that's what makes it interesting. That's what makes people want to engage with this category.
Sure.
You've got craft. You've got in every place you go to, there's easily 10 to 12 different types of gins.
Yeah.
And that's why the gin category is growing, because it appeals. People are saying, don't tell me how to drink my brand. Allow me to play with it. Allow me to add what I add. Versus being very prescriptive and telling me I must have my rum with Coke. Because if I don't drink it rum and Coke, then it's not the best way. And that's what has made this category explode. That you're finding women and men consuming this brand. Similarly with vodka. Vodka 4 or 5 years ago, the whole the category grew exponentially. Why? Because it was one of the first brands that was able to attract women into the category. And with us, our brand was Absolute. One source, a brand from Sweden, coming from one source. And how do we make that African? And that's why we had Kuli Chana as our brand ambassador. And and we had to ensure that not only it's not just about having a brand ambassador with a brand, but their characteristics and who they are have got to they've got to gel, they've got to mix. That when you see him, you see the brand. Versus you see right through the product or see right through the person, saying this is more about a financial obligation or contract, versus this person is living the brand. This person is the brand. And it's all about so as an entrepreneur, you got to think about who are the influences that you want to kind of use to help you build your brand, but also understand that it's not about the influence, it's about your brand. At the end of the day, once the dust settles, it's always about your brand.
100%. And like when I look at Cooley as well, it's almost like he asked for it the way it so fits.
Right.
It's almost like it wasn't approached.
Absolutely.
Because it's such a great fit, and some of the events that were done around that, it's just a natural fit. So it's not about like trying to rush something or get any celebrity that has the highest number of followers. It's like getting
that right fit. Absolutely.
So that like you're saying, his brand, sort of personal brand, and the brand itself and the identity it stands for.
They speak to each other.
They speak. So I feel like that's such a powerful one. And like you speak about influencers, I mean, we live in a day and age now where everybody is rushing to social media.
Yes.
And everybody is trying to get the most followers and get the most interaction in social media. But conviviality is something it's more personal, I feel. I may be wrong, but I feel like it's more personal. Like a friendship can't be created over a screen, where it can, but it's not as deep as when we're sitting together. Right. So I want to find out from you, when the organization looks at social media and understanding its relevance, but understanding this conviviality aspect of the core ethos.
Right.
How do you play the two? Understanding that there's a lot of young people in social media, but we want to get this experience that's real.
It's a great question. It's a great question, because I think social media is a platform. I mean, you're able to take a brand and expose it to hundreds of millions of people through social media. and it doesn't cost you as much as a TV, as print, or billboards, and it can go viral. So I can take content, I can send it to you, you can then send it to somebody else, you can like it, and it also creates that back and forth. So you're able to have feedback immediately from your consumers. Whereas with a TV ad, no one is, yes, you can get feedback in terms of, insights to find out, did the TV ad work? What were the ratings? Did the people like it? Why did they like it? But that comes long after the fact. Whereas with social media, it's instant, it's immediate. It's almost like immediate gratification. It's like fast food, and it's fast. So things are changing all the time. So it's a very important platform, and it attracts young people. If you look at social media in the last 3-4 years, how that's grown, how every single South African, with a cell phone, has the ability to get onto social media. Whereas if you're going to fly to TV ad, not everyone has a TV. Not everyone has electricity. Look at load shedding right now. So you're paying for advertisement, but unfortunately people can't even view it or reach it. So social media is a very integral platform, and you're looking at platforms such as Facebook is actually on the decline, whereas platforms like Instagram on the rise. Why? Because people are also, it's also about how do they depict themselves. How do they engage their followers? How do they stay relevant? And it's also fun.
It is.
So it's not a networking platform. It's a fun platform where people can get to know who you are. However you want to present that.
Sure.
Other people use it as a motivational factor. But it's a platform which people use in different shapes and forms. Now, from a convivial perspective, which is why we do a lot of events, because that's where you're actually touching your brand. That's where you're engaging with your consumers, having that one-to-one interaction, and you're taking this brand and you're bringing it to life. So when somebody thinks about, for example, GHMOM, you go to the Summit. That is a great, event where you can see what does MOM stand for. How do we dare? How do we win? How do we celebrate? Who are the people that are there? What are we doing on the night? Similarly, like you mentioned now with Valentine's. In terms of our platform with Boiler Room or True Music. When you get into that space, you realize this is what this brand is all about. It's not a pretentious brand. It's a brand for the people. It's a brand that says, doesn't matter where you come from, if you resonate, you're true to yourself, you're true to who you are, you can become a success. And hence why you look at the brand, the influence that we've used in this platform. We started off with Black Coffee, we've evolved to Black Motion, all South African artists who are true. We're not taking a concept from the UK and bringing it here and force-fitting it and bringing in UK artists. We're saying, no, we also have a story to tell. We also have a journey, and it's important that people share their journey, because it's through learning from, how did so-and-so, make it to where they are. You're able to bring people on this journey with you. And it's authentic because people can understand it and they can relate to it.
Sure. Yeah, no, that's powerful. That's powerful. Another thing for me that I've learned, is it's important to be relevant, even from an impact perspective, in terms of understanding just social-politically, what are the economic challenges that people are facing. And as brands who are operating in these areas and have these stakeholders, what responsibility do we have? And I mean, in your career, you've worked for organizations that have really led the agenda in terms of social impact. I mean, it's a lot of phenomenal work that SAB has done. I mean, the Unilever Sustainability Living Plan is like world renowned. And some of the work that Pernod Ricard is doing, when you look at things like the Shivers Venture campaign, that's looking at social entrepreneurs and the competition with it. I think they stand to win $1 million. I mean, that's phenomenal. And I think recently there was the 1-for-1 with the water. How important is it for businesses on all levels, whether you're a small business or whether you're you're medium size or whether you're a large corporate, to be aware of the socioeconomic or political standpoints and play the part, because a lot of people feel like, no, that's for charities, but if you're servicing those stakeholders, then surely you have a responsibility. When you have a responsibility, then how do you then inculcate that within your strategy, whether it's sales, branding, marketing, to try and bring it alive? So
charity begins at home. Our brands are consumed by South Africans in South Africa, and it's important that we actually look and we find out how can we give back to our communities, to the industry, and to our consumers and customers. And hence why, for example, this campaign that you spoke about, Venture with Shivers, is how do we identify entrepreneurs we're trying to, because every entrepreneur has a dream that their brand, their company is going to employ hundreds of people and also grow and help the community, alleviate poverty, alleviate unemployment. So it's a great cause, because it's not just about the individual, it's also about how he helps other people elevate them and take them with on the journey. So hence why the Shivers is such a great property. And we have the South African version. We also have one that runs globally, where the winner in South Africa then goes and competes against other entrepreneurs on a global platform. 1 for 1, which we launched about 2-3 months ago, is all about responsible drinking. So we understand, because we know our brands and we know that we're in the liquor industry, and we don't take it for granted. We understand that drinking and driving is a big thing, and being responsible and consuming our brands in a responsible manner is just as important. And hence why we came up with a brand called 1 for 1, which is all about, for every one drink that you have water. Because it's important that you're sober, and most importantly is, if you're going to get behind the wheel, if not that you're going to get behind the wheel after an event, but you take Uber, you take road assistance, because the last thing you want to do is, based on your actions, that another family is unfortunately loses a member of their family, a breadwinner, all because of your negligence or your gross negligence of that. So we are very mindful about what are the things that we can do in the space that we can play in to actually help our communities and South Africans to live a better life and to also achieve what their ambitions are as well in life.
Sure, that's powerful. I love that so much. I remember in my corporate career, I'm very competitive. Like, I want to win, and when I was in sales, like, I had to be the one. I had to get the number. I had to get, like, for me, you can give me a target, cool, I'll take it. But for me, like, I would put targets aside and I would want to get the best that I can, right? And I've worked on brands and in organizations that weren't market leaders, right? And maybe they were number 2 or number 3. And personally, like, I would take it personally. It would hurt that we're number 2 or number 3, because you want to be the best and you want to work for the best. And the challenge, though, sometimes I would find myself falling into the trap of looking at what the number 1 is doing, and feel like we should be doing the same. And in your space where you're number 2 globally in wines and spirits, and which is phenomenal in itself. But I'm sure, like, there are salespeople in the team who are like, damn it, we want to be number 1.
Absolutely.
So how do you stay sort of focused on what you're all about and your strategic imperatives, and not get sort of, stay relevant, stay competitive, but not sort of like fall into the trap of trying to follow what the number 1 is doing?
So how do you eat an elephant?
Bit by bit. One bite at a time.
One bite at a time. And it's the same thing with any strategy. So we put a 3-year plan, a 5-year plan, to say how we're working, how we progressing towards that plan. I mean, we have different brands that, as I mentioned, that operate in different categories. So some of our brands are number 1 in particular categories in certain markets. So on the basis of that is, how do we take those learnings as well? We're a global company, so how do we take, for example, Shivers, we're number 1 in Asia. Martell, Cognac, we're number 1 in China, in India. How do we take those learnings, what the guys have done there, as best practice, and try and not force fit it, but look and see what were their successes and how can we kind of leverage that in our South African market. So it's still looking at the bigger picture, but I think with us it's more about category by category, brand by brand. Because if the collective starts to do well, then you'll start to find that as a company we're starting to take share, and share is always the most important thing. As long as you're growing faster than your competitors, then you're winning. And then from there, then how do we take our brands from being, from a trial and awareness to usage, to regular usage, to the point that this brand is Thabo's favorite brand. It doesn't matter where he is, that's the brand that he wants. So, and that takes a lot of discipline. It takes marketing, it takes HR, having the right people, it takes operations, ensuring that our brand's in the right place. It takes a very strong sales team, in terms of distribution, availability, executing promotions and campaigns, and then most importantly is belief. Without anything, if you don't believe that your brands are successful and that your brands are of great quality, then how do you expect your consumers, how do you expect your customers, how do you expect your friends to believe that? So that's why for me, my friends know, if you're around me, you're going to drink my brands.
100%.
It's what it is. It's what it is. And you have to give people a reason to believe. And that's where, as a leader, it's all about what are we putting in front of our team.
Yeah.
What is our strategy to win? And it's about listening to what they're saying, but also at the same time never losing focus of where we're trying to get to, and celebrating every single win. Because sometimes we want to celebrate the big wins, and I'm saying no. There's so many wins that we can celebrate. Because what that does is it creates strong morale. It keeps the wheels turning, and ensures that people's passion and their energy and enthusiasm remains at a very, very strong level.
And that's often a trap a lot of entrepreneurs fall into, where we're so fixated on this big prize. If I can get the partnership with this corporate, or I can get this deal. And there's a lot of cool stuff that you're doing to get there, right? But if you're not celebrating those, then you run the risk of, creating an environment where people are flat and not motivated. And another thing is, what I always tell, entrepreneurs who are starting out is to focus on what you can be the best at. All right? Because when you look at number one, and they're the biggest, you got this mindset of thinking big means you're winning, or big means success. Like if I'm not big, I'm not winning. If I'm not big, I'm not successful. But you need to decide what you want to be. Do you want to be a gourmet burger that sells to 100 people, or do you want to be a McDonald's? And even if you are a McDonald's, you're not a McDonald's that sells hot dogs and pizzas. You're a McDonald's that's focused on this process of like creating convenience and perfecting that.
Absolutely.
So it's so key in terms of that razor sharp focus around who you are and what you stand for, and then making sure that when that comes alive, you celebrate it, but the team itself knows, because your leadership is tough. I can imagine on the scale that you're operating in, you got so many different people, and just to keep that focus, can be challenging.
Absolutely.
So how do you make sure that the voice that needs to be heard consistently resonates loud enough for everyone not to lose focus?
So I think coming back to what you spoke about earlier on about success. Success is relative.
Okay.
So what you deem as success looks very different for somebody else.
Okay.
And for entrepreneurs, I just want to say to them about success is that success is all about what are the goals that you've put in place for yourself and for your company or for your brands.
Sure.
So for example, if you want to have a strong company that operates in Johannesburg, and that's what success means for you, and you achieve that, then you're successful. If, for example, you want to have a company or brands that are, in all the cities in South Africa or that are global, and you're starting to achieve that, that's success. That's what it looks like for you. Or you want to say, I want to employ 100 people, and you have 100 people, on your books. That's what success looks like. But you always got to keep on pushing yourself and stretching yourself, and not rest on your laurels and end there. Because there's so much out there. But you got to push yourself, and you got to know what it is that you want. What is that big picture? Because all the little parts then add up to create that.
Sure.
I mean, I'm sure the guy, the John Kroc who came up with McDonald's, I'm sure for him it wasn't about necessarily having a burger, at every single corner, across the US. I'm sure for him it was about how do I make this company successful by having a fast food convenience for hot dogs or for hamburgers, for lack of a better phrase. But he was able to take what he took and to then move into property, but on a global platform. And a lot of entrepreneurs will tell you that they didn't think that they'd achieve the success that they've achieved, because for them they were always reaching bigger and stretching themselves. Because also it was about how, what kind of people do they have in their lives? Who are the people that are pushing them? What mentors do they have? Who they can go to? People who have actually run this race before them, who can help pull them and elevate them, help them think about different things. So, it's so important that you have people around you that are bigger than you, that can help you dream big and achieve big things. Because if, there's a saying that you're only as good as the 5 people around you. And if those 5 people are at the same level, as you, in terms of their thinking, in terms of their aspirations, that's where you're going to end. Whereas if you're always challenging yourself and having people that think big, that are doing big things, that'll rub off on you. Success is contagious. After a while, I promise you're going to get that break and it's going to turn into something quite big. But also understand that it comes with work. Success success has never been. Success is always dressed in overalls. That's what success looks like. It looks like hard work because it is hard work. You're not just going to get there because of a network or a connection or a friend. you're going to put in the work, you got to put in the time.
Yeah.
And over time, you'll find that you'll become successful in your own right.
Sure. I love that. I love that perspective that makes it real, because we've got these, perceptions of what it means to be an entrepreneur.
Right.
Like, got these big flashy ideals, driving the nice car,
Right.
wearing the nice clothes. We're not thinking about the hard work. And I think as well, what you're saying around mentorship is so important in terms of surrounding yourself with people that are going to push you, which sometimes is uncomfortable. And we don't like to be uncomfortable. We don't like to jump. We don't like to eat healthy.
Growth is uncomfortable.
So how do you deal with those pains? How do you deal with the pain of someone telling you that, yeah, you've got potential, but you're not tapping into it?
Right.
Because we always want to be thinking that we're winning, even though we've just lowered ceilings for ourselves.
Right.
So how does someone break this habit of thinking small and just absorb this discomfort, absorb this pain, absorb this constant desire to really transform?
Right.
Which is challenging. How can you advise someone to really like step into that?
I think over and above the company that you keep, I think the other important things, as I mentioned, is having mentors.
Yeah.
And not just having one.
Okay.
Have one maybe in the industry that you're in, and have two, or three that are outside of that industry.
Yeah.
Because they'll help you think very, very differently. Another thing is you read.
Yeah.
Right now we're at a time where you have ebooks.
Yeah.
So people say I don't have time to read. You have time to read. Everyone has 24 hours in a day.
Sure.
You gotta keep the main thing. And reading, you're continuously feeding. Your brain, you're continuously learning, you're continuously engaging and finding out what are other big things that are happening and how can you learn from other people. And then also having balance.
Okay.
Balance is so important because it's important that you have, exercise, that you're sleeping well, and you're sleeping long enough hours. And, for me, it's a spiritual element as well.
Yeah.
Because all those things for me kind of, put things in perspective. Because perspective is very important.
Yeah.
It's always important to understand it's not just about money. It's not just about, moving to the next level. There's so much more at stake, than just that. And hence why, if you're fit in your head, if you're fit in your body, and you're fit in your soul, all those things culminate into being the best version of you that you could potentially be.
Yeah.
So always look at yourself in all these parts, and not just from a financial or from a relational, but you take all these parts because it's the sum of all these parts that'll help you be successful.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. I like the balance. I often I refer to my framework as a banker, and we look at a portfolio of assets.
Right.
The old saying, you can't have all your eggs in one basket.
Right.
Because then you're exposed. If major risk happens, it can wipe you all out. You need to diversify. So another word for diversification is balance.
Right.
It's like big corporations have different brands.
Right.
Why do they have different brands? Why don't they just focus on a JH Mum and be a JH Mum and take all their monies and put it in JH Mum?
Yeah.
Then there wouldn't be balance.
Absolutely.
So I like the way you take it even like 3 or 4 steps back to our personal being. To say there is a spiritual element to you, there's an emotional element to you, there's a physical element to you, and if one of these areas are out of sync, it's going to affect your work.
Absolutely.
It's going to affect your output.
Absolutely.
So the piece around taking care of yourself and making sure that there is an element of balance, and balance looks different to different people.
Yeah, it does.
Because you can be my mentor, and you can read 3 hours a day.
Right.
But that doesn't mean I have to read 3 hours
Absolutely.
a day. So like it's finding that dance that sort of works for you.
Yeah.
Which then is about self-awareness. Then it's about knowing yourself.
Correct.
Because I think we're good at knowing other people.
Yeah.
We're good at knowing other brands, at knowing other products, at knowing other businesses. When you like close the door, turn off the lights, and be like, okay, Thabo Moloi, let's go, let's try and figure you out. That's a bit scary, And your experience in becoming the leader and self-aware leader that you are, was that like a natural thing to you, or did you do things or do exercises to build that self-awareness?
I think for me it was kind of natural.
Okay.
But at the same time I looked at people that were successful, and that were successful the right way.
Okay.
What that looked like to me, and I tried to emulate and to understand how did they get to where they were.
Okay.
And some of the elements or some of the characteristics was their integrity.
Sure.
You know, I love people with integrity. It was their authenticity. It was their honesty. You know, it was their willing to help people on the journey. You know, in terms of giving back, it was in terms of their journey wasn't just about them. And I've always resonated very well with those kind of leaders. Leaders who put people and put other people before themselves. Leaders who don't have an expectation that people will do certain things, but they lead by example all the time, even when it's hard. You know, and that's very difficult to do. So I've kind of a couple of people that I've looked at, you know, for the last 20 years, and it's about consistency. You know, you have a lot of people that will come today, be successful in their own right, and then, you know, 2, 3, 5 years, 10 years down the line, they're gone. You know, and you ask yourself, what happened to that person? What happened to that brand? I mean, you look at brands right now, the brands that are making a comeback. Fila, you know, Fila was a brand that people probably wrote off. Now they're back, champion. You know, and you ask yourself, what is it about these brands that they're able to have a second or a third burst? You look at a brand like Nike, which has been consistent. It's been there. They've moved from basketball into swimming, you know, into so many different spheres of what it is, you know, to compete and to compete at the highest level. And that's how I try to live my life and how I try to embody it. Is I always look to people that are further than I am, that I can learn from. Because the learning journey never ends. And if I can emulate that in my personal life and be able to give back, and as I move forward, who am I taking along in my journey? You know, who are the people that I'm helping? Because that's where the gratitude lies for me. You know, it's important that I get to where I need to get to, but it's how many people am I bringing along with me that can also lift other people, and that's what success looks like for me. You know, and it'll look different to different people.
It reminds me of a book written by Jim Collins, Built to Last, and he looks at that. He looks at like the Nikes of the world and these companies that have like stood the test of time. And he does like in-depth research, like years of research to unlock some of the things that, you know, other businesses can apply if they want to build an organization to last. What I like in the book, he speaks about understanding your core. You know, there's this core idea, there's this core mission. You know, whatever Nike does, Nike can like go into karate and go into volleyball and skiing, but there's a core. There's a core that will never change, no matter how bright the lights may look in the world of high-end fashion. no matter how bright the lights may look in like formal shoe wear, but there's a core. You know, and I feel like what you're saying around people as well is like, from a leadership perspective, is find your core, because when you find your core and that grounds you, no matter how tough it is, then you're able to like, you know, push forward. You always
fall back to that. No matter what happens out there. And I'll be honest, you know, being an entrepreneur, being a leader, sometimes it's hard. You know, people think you may make it look easy, but it's not the easiest thing, making decisions that impact hundreds or thousands of people every single day. You know, but it's hard, and that's why you are a leader, because you're able to make the right decision. Sometimes sometimes you won't get it right all the time. But it's also about how do you learn and how do you bounce back. It's about resilience.
And also like the people as well that you're leading, right? So being comfortable with them taking that empowerment, falling short, and you taking the fall for that.
And it's also about, you know, honest feedback. And being receptive, being open to constructive criticism. You know, no one wants to be told that they're not doing this right. But it's being able to understand at a deeper level to say, okay, so if that's one of my challenges or my issues, how do I tweak that and how do I perfect that? Because then by doing that, you're becoming a better version of yourself. And that's what leadership is about. You've got to always be able to listen. You know, I always say to people, listen 3-4 times more than you talk. You know, in meetings, I try to listen more than I talk. Because the power is in listening more than it is my opinion. And you'll find that if you're able to do that consistently, in every sphere, every angle of your life, you'll find that you'll be able to listen. You'll pick up a lot of things. You'll pick up a lot of opportunities by just listening.
100%.
You know, if you're very close to your customers and you're listening to what they're saying, versus coming in and telling them this is what you're going to do. Listen first. You know, as an entrepreneur, listen to what your consumers are saying. You know, listen to what your peers are saying. Listen to what your team is saying. Always listen. Always listen.
you almost like have to be comfortable with not knowing, you know. Whereas for me, I had to learn personally that it's okay not to have the answer.
Absolutely.
All right, because before I only wanted to venture in things where I knew as much as I could about everything.
Right.
All right. But then if you get into that mind space, you'll find yourself closing out learning opportunities because you feel like you know everything.
Absolutely.
But like when you're willing to learn, then you're in much better space to hear from your leader, hear from consumers, and that just makes you that much more better.
Absolutely.
You know? So I love what you're saying so much, and that's what I also encourage other entrepreneurs to get a channel where people can talk into you and educate you, more especially your consumers. Like there are businesses that don't have any channels for consumers to give them feedback, and it's like, then how are you learning? How do you know that you're improving or not? You know. And in your space, I know because I'm a salesman at heart, and I know how difficult it is to lead salespeople because I know the way I'm wired. So in your space, the conversations that are difficult, but at the same time keeping energy levels high, keeping people motivated. How do you have those? How do you ensure that when someone needs to be reined in, or you know they're missing a beat somewhere, or they're not focusing where they need to be focused? How do you make sure that you know you have the hard conversation, but at the end of the day they walk out still wanting to like run a mile for you?
It's a very difficult thing to do, but I think it all comes to trust and honesty. You know, I believe that those are probably the two most important components when you lead people. Is that you must create an environment that your team trusts you, that when you sit them down and you have a heart-to-heart conversation, that you're having it because it's in their best interest. Because you see potential, and you realize that they're not actually achieving or reaching that true potential. And that's why you're going to be hard on them in certain elements. So it's having that true, honest engagement. You know, I think those are things that a lot of leaders shy away from. You know, because people want you want to be liked. And unfortunately, you know, if you want to be liked, then don't be a leader, because you can't be effective and be liked at the same time. You know, so you'd rather be effective than be liked. And at the end of this, you know, we all have a different flair. You bring something different and unique. So for me personally, you know, I'm a very people's person. I'm very people-centric. You know, so people can come into my office at any given time. I when I set myself, you know, my day, you know, I try and put time for myself, which is very important. But also I try and fit time where I'll just phone my team randomly. How are things going? What are you struggling with? What can I help you with? You know, because at the end of the day, if I'm not in the trenches with you, and you feel like you're doing this by yourself, I can't expect you to win. So having tough conversations, people call it tough or courageous conversations. I'm saying have the conversation. You know, have the conversation, because everybody yearns for feedback. We all do. You know, if people want to know, am I doing well? If I'm not, what are the things that I can improve in? And also, you know, create that platform that people are able to receive that feedback. So don't just come in and give someone feedback. You know, ask the person, can I give you feedback? You know, because it's an invitation. And once the person says, yes, you can give me feedback, then you can have that feedback with that individual. And it's always important that you're always also reminding them what they're strong at and what they're doing really well. Because the last thing you want is every single time I'm giving you feedback, it's all about the things that you're not doing. So it's important that I remind you, you're very good at this, you're doing an exceptional job with this. However, here, you know, this is where your gaps are. And these are the things that I think you need to work on the basis of 1, 2, 3. And let it be factual. Let it not be, this is what I feel. It's not an emotion. You know, it's not this is what I think. It's this is what you're doing. And I can make an example. You know, this is the situation. This is what you did, and this is what it led to. And as a result, this is why this is something we need to work on. You know, and I'm here to help you. You know, with that challenge that you have. And then it's about, after you have the conversations, to revisit it after a month or two, and to find out how's that going. You know, can I help you with anything, so that the person doesn't feel like they're on their own, but you're there from a support and from a coaching perspective.
Yo, love that so much. Love that so much. So powerful. So lastly, you've built quite a formidable career. You know, worked for the best of the best on the biggest, and you've maintained, you know, the Michael Lebona brand and you've now grown its influence in terms of the people that you're able to lead and impact daily. What is the message that you can leave for other aspiring entrepreneurs, other aspiring career professionals who want to, build these brands or work in these organizations, but at the same time, build their own personal brands within those spaces? What are some of the philosophies that you live by that have helped you get where you are and excel where you are?
Right. I think for me is you can't teach passion.
Okay.
You got to be passionate about what you do. You got to love what you do. There's a lot of money in construction. I'd love to be a billionaire one day.
But we all.
But construction is not what I want to go into because I'm not passionate about it.
Sure.
I love I love consumer space. I love brands. I love building brands.
Yeah.
I love seeing things come to life. And that's why I'm in the space that I'm in. And for me, it's just to be the best that I can be.
Sure.
So all I can say to anyone that's watching, as an entrepreneur and wanted to build their brand or their personal brand is, at the end of the day, it all starts with you. Be you, bring passion, bring a level of excellence in everything that you do. One thing I can tell you is that no one will ever take that away from you. If you're showing up in the right way, in the right spirit, and you're leaving it all, I always say, do your best and God will do the rest. That's a philosophy that I live by. And you'll find that favor then comes with you as well. You'll find all kinds of favor as long as you're, another thing I believe in is put your head down and follow through. A lot of people talk about a lot of things that they want to do, but they don't do it. It starts with one step, so start somewhere, but most importantly is consistency and follow through.
Sure. Michael, that is amazing. Thank you so much. Guys, this is the guy that you're going to want to follow. I'll be sure to leave the links in his social media pages. I hope he allows you to follow him, but he's so inspiring, he's so motivational, and I've had a tremendous time just sitting next to him, listening to the wealth of wisdom, insights, and knowledge. So I hope you've been taking notes. If you haven't, make sure that you watch this 2 or 3 times because there's so many nuggets of wisdom he has unpacked that can take any business to the next level. So thank you so much for watching this. Appreciate you. If you're not online, make sure that you switch on. And like I promise you, every single time, promise you, it's going to be a movie. One love.